All right. Hey there, and welcome to this episode where we're going to continue our series on common mistakes with the OCD and anxiety recovery path. And in this episode specifically, we're going to talk about going the lone wolf route. So, before we dive into the show, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I am the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And to help out the show, just before we dive in, we'd really appreciate if you could take a quick second and like and subscribe, and even hit the notification bell if you're joining us via YouTube, or if you're on the podcast. Please go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify, as it just helps the algorithm of the show and helps us get this to as many people as possible. So, in the last episode in this series, we talked about the idea of not prioritizing recovery. And obviously, in order to recover, you have to really set that intention, right? And it has to be a top priority, right? It has to be something that you're focusing your energy on. It can't be something that's put on the back burner, so to speak. And that episode, we'll link down in the notes to it, so you can kind of check that out, because these are going to build on each other. But in this episode, I wanted to talk about this idea of the lone wolf route. And so this is something that I did for a long time, and is absolutely something that kept me stuck. And I didn't realize it at the time, right? And there's a couple of reasons for it, and so I want to go into those as well, and kind of why I stayed in that lone wolf approach. And really what I'm saying by that is just kind of like, I'm going to figure this out myself, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to help get myself better. That is important, right? Like, you do need that internal drive. The problem is that I wasn't receptive to outside help. Now, one of the reasons that happened, and I know many people can relate to this, is because I kept getting bad advice. I was trying to get help, and then it wasn't, I wasn't getting good advice. It wasn't panning out. People were trying wrong interventions, misdiagnosis, all that stuff, when I was really stuck in that OCD and anxiety wheel. And so, I would get told things that I just knew weren't right. And when I would talk to people, I also just kind of had this deep feeling that they didn't understand what I was experiencing, which led me to not seeking help more and more. And I kind of like let go of like seeking help externally, which was a problem. And this is where I made a mistake, right? And this was, just one of the things I wanted to share and reflect on, because I went into like, I'm just going to read a ton, and I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to figure out whatever I need to figure out to get myself better. This is learning point number one for this episode, is that just because you haven't gotten the right advice to this point in your journey doesn't mean that getting guidance and advice from other people is bad. The reality is that you're gonna need guidance and advice on this journey from someone who is further along. It's the only way that you can eliminate your blind spots, is to get guidance from people or someone who has navigated the path before you. It's like trying to forge the path yourself is essentially reinventing the wheel, right? You don't need to do that, and it's gonna take you a lot longer on this journey to really get to where you want to get to, if you're gonna go the lone wolf route like I did. And it's not to say that I didn't have good help in my journey, because I did. There's several people. It's just I spent a long time going the lone wolf route before I finally found people who were better, and I started like talking with them, and they're able to kind of like make little adjustments. And so while I don't think I had and I don't think anyone has just like one person who really is like the only person they listen to, the only person they ever got guidance from, that really helped them get to where they want to get. At the end of the day, you should have multiple guides in different areas of your life. And so when you really get this, and this idea of like, it's okay to get guidance and finding the right guidance. What guidance does, and this is what coaching or therapy or consulting, whatever you want to call it, when you're seeking guidance from somebody else, you have to understand that you're not investing in paying that person for an hour of their time, right? This is like, I didn't want to invest in counseling or coaching or any of that stuff, because I was like, well, there's no way that paying that person X amount of money for an hour is worth it. Couldn't have been more wrong about that belief, right? This is the second big learning point. When you're investing in coaching or a program or a book or whatever it is, what you are investing in is a time consolidation. And for someone to take what took them 10 years to learn, and they've condensed it into a couple hours of training or a book or, one-on-one sessions, they are taking all their knowledge that took them a long time to learn and giving it to you so you don't have to take the same amount of time to learn it. So the more people, so essentially you're buying back years of your life in many ways. Once I understood that, then that's why I won't be without a coach in my life now in certain areas, whatever it is, whether it's business coaching or just it could be about marriage, relationships, right? Getting guidance there, for just to make my marriage the best I could, fitness and health, right? I mean, all that stuff is having guidance is so important. And you don't need to be the lone wolf. If you go the lone wolf route, it will only get you so far because you're always going to have to learn all the lessons that you could learn from someone else yourself. And you're going to, and most of the time what going the lone wolf route is going the wrong way and then learning what the wrong way was and then coming back and then trying the next path. That was my experience for a long time. And that's why when it comes to going the lone wolf route, what it does is it prolongs the journey a lot longer than it needs to be. And you really got to understand that those are the trades you make in this journey. Going the lone wolf route, what you're trading is time, your time, which by far is the most valuable asset you have, but you're trading your time to figure out all the wrong things and then eventually land upon the right thing. And if you keep at it, you'll get there. I mean, you will. I'm not saying you can't make it if you go the lone wolf route, but when you start investing in guidance and investing in someone who's done this before, what you're doing is you're trading your money instead of your time to get the right guidance, and ultimately buying back your time to get the results to then go live how you want to live, so to speak. No one ever explained that to me. And I cannot stress, looking back, how clearly I see that now of how much time I wasted going that lone wolf route. And part of it, again, was because, again, I had tried to get help and I wasn't getting better. So I just assumed that I went and made the false belief that, well, I haven't gotten the right help and I've tried these, 3, 4, 5 people. So, it must not be possible, to just persistently trying to find the right person. And as soon as you find someone who has gotten the result you want in their own life, that's a great place to start, because at the very least, what that person can do is usually direct you to resources that they use to get that result, which then you can then follow, or the person will guide you themselves. And this is why, again, always moving into this idea that there's always a solution, and remembering that just because you haven't found the solution doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means you haven't found it yet. That's it. And that persistence, right, to get better, which again, we might talk about in a future episode, is just quitting, right? Because there's a cool book. I haven't read it all yet, but it's called 3 Feet from Gold. And just talking about how a lot of people, the reason they fail is just because they give up right before they were about to be successful. And so persistence is obviously a huge thing in recovery, is just having that stubbornness of I'm going to get better. So first you make it a priority, and then you have to realize hey, I do need guidance on this journey, right? And then getting the right guidance and not going that lone wolf route is just so important because it saves you time. That's the reason. That's the fundamental reason. And the main message that I want to communicate in this episode is the time that you save by not going the lone wolf route. And time, what I've come to believe, is the most valuable thing that you have in this life, because it's a finite resource and it is diminishing, right? Like, we're born at a certain time, we're going to pass away at a certain time. And so that every minute that we have on this earth is more valuable because we have less of them. So when it comes to, looking back on my own journey, I do see this as one of the biggest quote unquote mistakes that I made, was just this stubbornness of trying to go the lone wolf route. And part of it was because of frustration. Part of it was because I was stubborn. And the more I've been open to receiving guidance and coaching in my life, especially from people that are very aligned with similar goals that I had, and people that have gotten to places that I want to get to in whatever capacity that is, then, and being really open and willing to like listen to what they have to say. That's been like one of the most transformational things in my own life. And so I share this because it's like, I know that there's a lot of people listening that have experienced nothing but frustration while they're trying to seek guidance. And I've been there, and it's valid. And if you've been talking with people and you just feel like this person doesn't get what I'm saying, this person really doesn't understand, that's okay. It doesn't mean that guidance isn't available. It just means that you haven't found the right person yet. That's all. That's all. No therapist is the best therapist for everyone. No coach is the best coach for everyone. There is someone out there. There is a program. There is the right guidance out there. Your job is to be persistent and to find it. Right. And when you find it, you'll know, because you're going to feel aligned with it. You're going to feel like this person's able to identify exactly what I'm going through. And this person's going to say, like, they're going to tell you their experience, and it's going to mirror your experience. And then they're going to say, here's how I got to where you want to go. And then and a lot of times they're going to give you the path. That's what saving the time is. That's why going the lone wolf route is the most costly thing about the lone wolf route, is all the time you spend doing the wrong stuff. And that was one of the things about exposure and response prevention that I think was so costly for me, is I was, trying to implement it, just not realizing I was engaging in a bunch of mental compulsions, not realizing I was doing all these things that were actually, again, preventing myself from getting better, and just not knowing that. So, the key takeaway for this episode is really just understanding the idea of, you have options. You can go the lone wolf route, right? Like, you can. And just because you've been met with past struggles and past disappointments doesn't mean you have to do that, right? That was a mistake I made, is thinking that because I hadn't found the help, it must not be available. So I went the lone wolf. The costly aspect of the lone wolf route is time, which I believe is the most valuable thing you have, which is why I don't recommend the lone wolf route. Is it possible to get better? Sure, absolutely. I never say anything's impossible. But if you're looking for help and really it's something that you need and are looking for, it's like finding the person who has struggled with what you're struggling with and gotten the result you want to get. Generally, that person will be able to give you, the kind of guidance, at least initial starting points, or refer you to even better resources that will then consolidate that time so that you don't have to learn that on your own. And that time consolidation is what you're investing in when you seek guidance from somebody else, or buy a book, or buy a program or course. It's like the time consolidation is your investment. And you just got to understand that that's what you're trading. And because then it makes sense to make that trade or investment. When you think of it in the context of how most people present it, where you're like buying hours from somebody or something like that, it doesn't seem like it makes sense, because you're like, oh, this is a big expense for that person's hour. What you're buying is the knowledge that they can condense into that hour to give you, so you don't have to learn it. So, learn it by going the lone wolf route. And that's, the more and more I've realized that in my life, the more obviously willing I've been to invest in coaching in various aspects of my life. And I've just seen the return on investment being not just, it doesn't even have to be financial. It's just about that saving of time. That I can then choose to invest that time how I want to invest it. And understanding that, I think, is just so important. And I wanted to make an episode on that specifically, because it's like once I saw it like that, a lot of things changed. And so I want to share that today. Hope it was helpful. And with all that said, there's some links down in the notes for some resources if you're looking for places to get started, with Restored Minds, if you're looking for additional help. And then we have various resources on our website at restoredminds.com that you can check out as well. Thank you all for hanging out today. I wish you a great week. And with all that said, I'll see you on the next episode. Hey there, hope you enjoyed that recent video. We really would appreciate your support real quick if you could like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking for help with OCD and anxiety, please check out the links below or visit restoredminds.com, as we'd be happy to help you on your journey. Thanks so much.